home improvement, DIY, and restoration. Each week brings home repair questions, expert advice, and stories of craftsmanship and renovation. Sunday morning at 11 on WUSF, sponsored locally by New South Windows.
If you get health insurance through the Affordable Care Act, your premiums will spike at the end of the year. How much more will you pay? Are you worried you can't afford healthcare coverage at all? I'm Matthew Petty, and coming up on Florida Matters Live and Local, we want to hear what you think about the cost of health insurance on the federal marketplace. And we'll ask some healthcare navigators for some advice as costs go up. Call and tell us your experience with rising government health insurance prices. 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can email us too at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. And you've heard of Florida Man and Florida Woman. They've been anti-heroes of news headlines for decades. Now there are games celebrating their antics and TV shows about real life and fictional Florida men and women. Do you have a favorite Florida Man story? What does it say about our state? We'll talk about it and take your calls. First, these headlines.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The White House is calling newly released emails tying President Donald Trump to the late financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein a distraction from reopening the U.S. government. NPR's Stephen Fowler has details.
The three emails appear to show more of a connection between the president and Epstein, including a message from Epstein that said Trump, quote, knew about the girls, and another that said Trump spent hours at Epstein's house with a sex trafficking victim. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt sent a statement to NPR that reads in part, quote, these stories are nothing more than bad faith efforts to distract from President Trump's historic accomplishments. This, as the House is set to vote on a bill to reopen the government and will have enough members to advance a measure to release more Epstein files. Stephen Fowler, NPR News.
Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva says that one of her first actions when she's sworn in today will be to sign a petition to force a vote on a bill requiring the release of more Epstein emails. She won an election to fill the seat held by her late father, Congressman Raul Grijalva, 7 weeks ago. The U.S. House of Representatives reconvenes this hour. NPR's Claudia Grisales is monitoring.
House lawmakers will be back in town today for the first time since House Speaker Mike Johnson let them go home in September before the shutdown even began. The House Rules Committee met for more than 7 hours last night, and they moved this bill to the floor, and that sets the stage for a final vote later tonight. And as you will recall, this deal came together after a group of Senate Democrats broke ranks to vote with Republicans to end the government shutdown.
NPR's Claudia Grisales reporting. Much-loved Italian pasta could vanish from American supermarket shelves from January if the U.S. Commerce Department goes ahead with a decision to slap heavy duties on Italian pasta brands. NPR's Ruth Sherlock reports.
The Commerce Department is accusing major Italian pasta producers of anti-dumping practices. That's when a foreign company sells their goods at a cheaper rate than at home. The department threatens to impose duties which, when combined with recent new charges on European Union goods by the Trump administration, would push tariffs on Italian pasta to 107%. Anti-dumping probes are fairly routine, but Italian pasta companies say they have never resulted in such extraordinarily high duties. Italy's influential agribusiness association Coldiretti warns this barrier is so high that it would, quote, practically wipe out Italy's pasta exports to the United States. Ruth Sherlock, NPR News.
The Dow is up 331 points. This is NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from BetterHelp, committed to making mental well-being a priority and offering support in taking on everything life demands, with therapists available to communicate via video, chat, or phone at betterhelp.com/public.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7. I'm Craig Kopp. Hillsborough County is bracing for another round of letters from charter schools that want to take up unused space in public schools. As WUSF's Carrie Sheridan reports, school board members are pushing state leaders to change a law that allows charters to do that.
28 schools in Hillsborough County received notices in October. School board member Nadia Combs says many of the letters went to schools where children with special needs learn.
So that's a big concern. They targeted every single exceptional center that we have. And then also some of our new schools.
She says the entire school board and superintendent went to Tallahassee to meet face-to-face with legislators this month.
So we are asking to make sure that the services, the cost of transportation, food, electricity, that should be shared. I don't know why the burden would be on one organization, not another.
The new law says public schools must pay those costs for the incoming charter. Carrie Sheridan, WUSF 89.7 News.
Pinellas County wants to hear from you about
programs and the possibilities for new grade configurations like K-8s or 612s, school closures, and consolidations.
The first public meeting is tonight from 5:30 to 7 at Boca Ciega High. Monday, there's a meeting at Largo High School. More are scheduled next month at Dunedin, Hollins, and Lakewood High School. Details at WUSF.org. Going to be a bit warmer today and will continue to warm up throughout the rest of the week. We'll see a high of 70 degrees today. Tomorrow we'll get all the way up to 75. I'm Craig Kopp, WUSF 89.7 News.
Support for the Zest podcast comes from WUSF members and Adelaide Interiors, with a new location now open on Kennedy Boulevard, east of Habana Avenue in Tampa, offering lunch and learn events and featuring the Wellness Kitchen, where design meets well-being. Learn more at adelaide.com.
Connect to the greater Tampa Bay region first thing weekday mornings with Wake Up Call from WUSF. Local news, events info, culture, and more. Sign up for your Wake Up Call today at WUSF.org.
This is Florida Matters live and local, broadcasting from the Doctors Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio in Tampa. I'm Matthew Petty. The federal government shutdown, the longest ever, could soon be over. But when it ends, a big question mark keeps hanging over the debate that started the shutdown: how much it costs to get health care on the federal marketplace. In Florida, 4.7 million of you depend on the marketplace for coverage. That's 27% of state residents aged 64 and younger. Now, if you get health coverage, health insurance through the Affordable Care Act, you've got to notice that your premiums are going to spike at the end of the year. Average premiums will go up 75%. Some people will see monthly payments go up 100, even 200%. Subsidies that kicked in during the COVID-19 pandemic are about to expire unless Congress votes to extend them. Well, to help us understand what's happening to the health plans that you or those you know depend on, we're joined by Cassandra Garza, Florida Covering Kids and Families Program Manager. Cassandra, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And also with us is Dr. Zonjanice Jacobs, Florida Covering Kids and Families Director. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Florida Covering Kids and Families is a statewide program which helps Floridians access healthcare. You can join the conversation too if you're buying health insurance through the marketplace. How much are your premiums going to go up? Will you be able to afford that health insurance? And if not, what do you do? And if you get health insurance through your work, do you have some concerns about the cost and what that insurance covers? The number is 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Call in and let's talk about it. You can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. All right, so Cassandra, let me start with you. What are you hearing from people around Florida as these premium hikes loom?
Yeah, so with our Navigator program, we meet with consumers across the state, so we are seeing changes. Consumers are expressing that their premiums are going higher, so people who may have paid $0 before or even maybe $15, it is going up to like 200s or 100s, things that are now outside of that affordable range.
Yeah, so that's a lot of money out of pocket.
Yeah, and you're seeing that a lot with those silver plans. So they may have been eligible for more cost sharing and additional, enhanced premium tax credits. So with those now not being built into those plan prices that we're seeing, consumers are concerned.
Yeah. Okay, just remind me for a moment, like you mentioned silver plans, so that you have like different tiers of health coverage. So presumably for a gold plan, you're going to be paying more, getting more coverage, silver less, etc.
Yeah, and traditionally that is what you would see. So as you got higher level in the plans, you would see lower copay, so things that you are paying when you go see your doctors, or if you're sick and you're seeking treatment, you would see kind of those lower premiums, or even the deductibles would be lower. But what we're seeing this year is that there is quite a few plans that are on both of the spectrum. So bronze and gold, that might be $0 for certain consumers based off their income or what they may be eligible for those tax credits. But yeah.
Okay, so when people talk to you, or when you talk to people and say, okay, look, my premiums are going to go up 75, 100, 200%, what do you tell them?
Well, we kind of treat this when we meet with consumers. We have our navigators who are they know a lot of the plans that are available in their county area. So we help them navigate the marketplace. So we look at the different plans, and we do it by just kind of assuring them that there are options. So whether that is through the marketplace, or if they're seeking specific types of care but they need to stay in a budget, there are different types of services. So whether that's a FQHC, there are places to get health care. If that makes sense.
Okay, but they may not be as good, or the coverage may not be as extensive as what they've had?
I can't say that the coverage wouldn't be extensive. We would just have to change what the plan they are hoping to get, right? So if they're hoping to still stay in that $15 range, it might just look a bit different when you're paying your co-pays or what the deductible is. But the care on the marketplace, they are supposed to cover the 10 essential health benefits, which is, the preventative care, pregnancy care, whatever that is. Those won't change. It's just, again, that price.
If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking about health insurance. If you buy it through the marketplace, want to hear from you too. How much are your premiums going to go up, and will you be able to afford that health insurance? And if not, what are your plans? The number is 813-755-6562. You can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Well, Dr. Jacobs, how does Florida covering kids and families, think about what happens after December 31st, I guess. If these subsidies aren't extended, what does that mean for what you all do?
Absolutely. So we have actually two programs that we operate. So the first is the Navigator program, which helps to support individuals with getting access to the federal marketplace. On the other side of the programs that we have the Connecting Kids to Coverage project, which helps families get access to Medicaid and children's health insurance programs as is applicable. So for those who might be Medicaid eligible and or seeking care and services for their children, you have an opportunity to do that year round. So nothing changes in that regard. However, for those who are accessing the federal marketplace, open enrollment lasts until January 15th this year for February 1st coverage. One of the greatest challenges we do have right now is trying to understand what will happen next if the tax credits are to be extended, what that then looks like for those who are seeking access, which could very well mean that if the tax credits are extended, you have folks that are going to want to rush and hurry and get into that coverage between January 1st and January 15th, which means a pretty busy season, and even more busy season than what we're seeing right now for our navigators.
Sure.
And also really trying to help and triage them to different resources as we are not a 24-hour institution. So it's going to be really helping people to find that balance, but also a shift in some of the education and information that we're going to need to provide, because at this point, as Cassandra mentioned, we're operating under the guise that the tax credits aren't extended. So these price increases that folks are seeing is based upon that not being built in. Whereas if they are to extend it, now we may have to go a little backwards and try to figure out what that means for those who have already paid their first monthly premium, what it's going to look like for their next monthly premium, and what education we have to provide to consumers going forward in terms of what's available to them.
So in terms of kind of how you're planning for this, are you expecting a lot of people to drop off the Affordable Care Act marketplace come December 31st or January 1st if those tax credits aren't extended?
So as it stands right now, those who have decided to continue with their coverage, and we've had some folks that have already called into our 877 toll-free line, just communicating their concerns around even alternative plans, as Cassandra mentioned. If the plans are a little bit more expensive for what you already had, but you're thinking about something else, we'll work you into that and start to look at what kind of cost we can forecast and what that looks like. But for some people, they've already communicated that this is not the option that they want to seek or that they want to pursue. At that point, we start to communicate with them about the federally qualified health centers, which do provide quality health services and a pretty extensive amount of coverage in terms of what kind of preventative care folks can get, as well as some treatment for chronic disorders. As well, we'll support them with accessing local county plans if it's available to them, and also connect them to other low or charitable cost resources so that way they can get their needs met.
Gotcha.
So that's a big kind of component of it. But on the other side, we also will tell people, why don't you contact the insurance provider like a Florida Blue or an Aetna or or Aetna CVS or Optum, any of those other providers, and see if there is a plan that they have that's affordable for you, because the plans that you were offered in the marketplace do still exist with those insurance providers. It's just that these are the plans that have been specified to receive tax credits.
Gotcha.
That's not to say that something doesn't exist on the insurer's part
Yes.
that might work for them.
Okay, so we are talking about health insurance on Florida Matters Live and Local. Tax credits are set to expire for folks who buy health insurance on the Affordable Care Act marketplace by the end of the year. If you are one of those folks who gets your health insurance that way, I want to hear from you. What are your premiums expected to go up by, and how are you planning to move forward with your healthcare coverage? 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. If you want to join the conversation, you can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Did you get a lot of people signing up for healthcare this way 2020 forward?
So last year, we actually saw a pretty extensive enrollment across the board from our project. And part of it is because the prices were different and people could forecast their cost, much more. In this instance, with such significant increases for folks, it's really trying to help to triage them to other resources that might be available in the way of affordability, even down to calling their doctors or providers and saying, how much would this cost if I did not have insurance at all? Because for some people, they find that it's much less expensive for them just to pay for their service outright, or even to use other kinds of programs for medication like GoodRx, or sometimes going to some of these other providers who have pharmacies that might have discounted plans, just helping them to navigate in a way that works in the confines of their own budgets, but also continues to get their needs met. So definitely more people last year enrolling at this time. I would say that we're sitting at about a quarter of where we were last year at this time of folks that have enrolled.
And that's just because people are sort of thinking, what is going to happen with these tax credits?
It's the tax credits, it's the cost, it's the increases in the max out-of-pockets and deductibles that they're seeing across the board in terms of plans, and folks trying to figure out, is this what I have the fiscal resources to be able to support, going forward? Can I afford a plan that's $200 when I originally was paying $50 when my salary didn't go up? So it's definitely that kind of a balance, and we try to take the human perspective, really thinking about how this is a difficult decision for many people to make, and helping them to understand that health insurance is shifting across the board, not just for the marketplace.
Yeah, it's a complicated situation. We're speaking with Dr. Zonjanice Jacobs, Florida Covering Kids and Families Director, and Cassandra Garza is with us too with the program. We'll continue the conversation in a moment. If you have questions about your health insurance and the Affordable Care Act, and you want to weigh in, worried about your premiums going up, call 813-755-6562. The conversation continues just after this on Florida Matters Live and Local. You can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Thank you so much for being with us, Zonjanice, and do stay with us, Cassandra.
Thank you. Thank you.
Funding for WUSF comes from listeners like you, and also Caldwell Trust Company, an organization which has been navigating clients toward their financial goals since 1993, building wealth and preserving legacy. the way it's meant to be. Learn more at ctrust.com.
I'm Scott Tong. President Trump pardoned Rudy Giuliani and others who challenged the 2020 election. A new investigation finds almost everyone pardoned in Trump 2.0 are supporters, donors, culture war figures.
He is almost exclusively pardoning and granting clemency to people who don't qualify for it under the existing Department of Justice standards.
Next time, Here and Now.
Coming up at 1 after Florida Matters Live and Local.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7 Tampa, broadcasting from studios at USF Tampa and USF Sarasota Manatee.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. We're talking about health insurance. One of the reasons the federal government has been shut down is Republican and Democrat lawmakers can't agree on extending COVID-era subsidies for health insurance. Well, it looks like the shutdown could end, and unless Congress and the President act, healthcare subsidies will expire in December, and that will send government health care costs much higher, an average 75% increase, a lot more for some folks as well. So we're talking about what this could mean for you and the nearly 5 million Floridians affected. What are your concerns about health insurance? Are you worried about whether you can afford it? The number to call, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also email us, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. With us is Jay Wolfson. He's a public health professor and senior associate vice president of USF Health. Jay, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate that.
Glad to be here, Matthew. Thanks.
And also with us, Cassandra Garza with Florida Covering Kids and Families. Cassandra, thank you as well. So let me just go to the phones here. We've got Pearl on the line. Pearl, you're on the air. What are you thinking as you consider your health insurance at this point in time?
Well, I consider I'm going to have to drop something to be able to afford it because going from $35 a month to $567 a month is not an option for me.
Yeah.
So
and do you get your health insurance through the Affordable Care Act? Is that where you get at this point?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And the company I go through is Better, and right now it's not better.
So what do you like? Have you talked to a navigator, and what have they told you, if so, or what are your options at this point?
Well, right now that's just what they sent me, saying my new rate would be. I haven't talked to a administration about it yet at the marketplace, but I will have to.
Mm-hmm. Pearl, thank you so much for calling in. I really appreciate that. Cassandra, I imagine that's kind of like what you're going to be hearing from a lot more folks very soon.
Yeah. What we are seeing as people are calling into our toll-free line is that they are seeing increasing prices. For Pearl's situation, it seems that she is going through Better directly. What we do that's different is that we are able to help consumers explore all the plans that are available on the marketplace. So taking in, your budget, because we are getting consumers who call in and they say, hey, I got a letter from the provider that I chose and it's increasing. And a big thing that we do is just kind of help them navigate all the options and choices they may have.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back to the phones here. Susan is calling in. Susan, you're on the air. What are you thinking?
Hi. I had an Obama coverage for a year before I turned 65, and I'd already retired, so I thought, why not? And it wasn't the greatest insurance for sure, but the worst thing was that, after a few months after I got the insurance, they stopped paying claims, and no one could reach them. There was no email address. It was all gone. And so I reached out, and the only thing that I could do was to file, I guess, a class action suit with the well, I'm not thinking of my words, but
sure.
Basically the thing was I was just out of thousands of dollars because I had a lot of things that I had to. So now all I'm doing is I got part of the on the class action suit via the Better Business Bureau.
But what are you doing for health insurance now, if I could?
Oh, sure. I retired, and so I became eligible, and so I don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
But I am afraid because sadly every other day the news tells us who we're who we're going to be bombing, or it's just it's a bad time. It's a bad time to have problems.
Sure, a lot of concerns there. Susan, thank you so much for weighing in. I wonder about that, Jay. I mean, it sounds like, there are some folks who may be having some issues with healthcare under the ACA, but then they may kind of like age into other kinds of coverage. Is that something that's maybe alleviating a little bit of strain for folks in a certain age group?
It can help, Matthew, a little bit if you're aging out of Obamacare and aging into Medicare.
Sure.
You're still going to have the problem of Part B coverage and drug coverage. Mm-hmm. And Part B requires out-of-pocket.
That's the so-called donut hole?
That's correct. And under Part D, that's the donut hole. Unless you participate in one of the plans that covers everything, takes your Social Security check and gives you a package. But most Medicare beneficiaries going into it don't really know what to do. If you're transitioning in, you're going to get your Part A, which is hospital benefits paid for, but you're not necessarily going to be able to get your Part B without having to pay out of pocket, or your Part D, which are the pharmaceuticals. And those things you're going to require some assistance in navigating through.
Right, which is where people like Cassandra come in.
Yeah. We do have consumers who come in and they have some parts of Medicare coverage, and they are eligible to get on the Marketplace plan and still get some type of subsidies to help them pay for it. Mm-hmm. But again, that's what navigators do. We'll take consumers' unique needs and kind of work to help them get their coverage.
What are your concerns about health insurance? Are you worried about whether you can afford it, and with subsidies set to expire unless the Congress acts by the end of the year, what are your premiums going to go up by? 813-755-6562 is the number. You can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Jay, I mean, the cost of healthcare, the complexity of it, it's kind of a mess for a lot of folks. Why is this stuff so complicated?
Well, it's been a mess for a long time, and part of it is the way our healthcare system is organized and financed. Other nations do a couple of things. One is they have more of a socialized system of care where people pay higher taxes and more people are given a broader scope of benefits, as in New Zealand and Canada that you're familiar with.
But there are still issues with those.
There are issues with those. But
healthcare is expensive.
But it's expensive, but there's really a fundamental cultural issue, Matthew, that we've been talking about for a long time. In the States, most people in a policy position, and even some of us as individuals, are not prepared to pay more to make sure that our neighbors and our friends have health care, health benefits. It's not seen as a right, and nowhere in the Constitution is health care a right. So the Congress and state legislatures have been very, very careful to avoid guaranteeing access to health care. The Affordable Care Act is the closest thing we've gotten. The biggest national health care system we have is the veterans system on the VA. Mm-hmm. But the other health care, it's not, and it's not coordinated. It's not managed very well, and because we don't see it nationally as a cultural thing that we should give to everybody, and we're not prepared to pay for more. And the other fact of it is, because of the way we operate the healthcare system, we spend more and get less than any other country on earth. We do more tests, we provide more pharmaceuticals, we have more fancy equipment and things. And if you look at the outcomes across disease states, across population groups, our outcomes are poorer than every place else on earth, with a few small exceptions.
Yeah.
And we see those data, policymakers see those data, but it's very hard to change the direction of that ship because the federal government doesn't run the healthcare system. It's all contracted out to various private contractors and third parties.
We're going to have to move on, but just in the last 30 seconds or so, could this be the end of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act?
I don't think it's going to end, no, because there's nothing to replace it. And the Congress has tried, I think, 80 times now to get rid of it, but they don't have something to put in its place. And if they tried to, I think they'd have tens of millions of people who would be very angry. The answer is not easy, Matthew.
Yeah, not easy, and probably not enough time to deal with it in 1 hour program. But thank you very much for your insights, Jay Wilson, Public Health Professor and Senior Associate Vice President of USF Health. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Be well. Be safe.
And also with us, Cassandra Garza with Florida Covering Kids and Families. Cassandra, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, coming up next, 1 minute, Florida man is trying to swap an alligator for a six-pack in a convenience store, and then he's chasing down a burglar while wearing Batman pajamas. We'll talk with St. Petersburg author Craig Pittman about the memes, the myths, and the realities of Florida Man. And if you are a Florida man, call in. That's next on Florida Matters, live and local. Stay with us.
WUSF depends on contributions from people like you. And Humana, and Ravello Medical, dedicated to offering whole person health and wellness through health plans and healthcare. Other providers are available in the Humana network. Providers may also contract with other plan sponsors. Learn more at healththatcares.com.
On the next Fresh Air, a profile of Laura Loomer, the MAGA conspiracy theorist who describes herself as President Trump's chief loyalty enforcer. The New Yorker's Antonia Hitchens discusses how Loomer forged a close alliance with Trump, got a Pentagon press pass, and Loomered high-ranking government officials. Join us.
Fresh Air can now be heard weeknights, Monday through Thursday at 7 o'clock.
You are listening to WUSF 89.7 Tampa, your spot for local. Learn more about us at WUSF.org.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Florida Man. For years, he's been the star of outlandish news stories about the Sunshine State.
A Florida man faces criminal charges. It is for his unique way of trying to cross the Atlantic Ocean.
What a way to travel.
Yeah.
He was trying to journey from here all the way to the United Kingdom in a human-sized hamster wheel.
Well, now there's a Florida Man Games featuring competitions ripped straight from the headlines.
Well, after thousands showed up to St. Johns County, Florida to watch 12 teams compete in this one-day competition last February, event founder Pete Melfi is ready to bring the Battle Royale back this Saturday. Don't worry, though, event staples like the Evading Arrest Obstacle Course will return.
And there are TV shows like It's Florida Man, an HBO comedy series which includes reenactments of some of the wildest stories.
Stories get wilder and wilder. More often than not, they're not true. But in Florida, they're all true.
Well, to help us understand some of the myth-making around Florida Man, here's journalist and author Craig Pittman. Craig's a Florida man himself. He was born and bred in Florida, and he joins us from his home in St. Petersburg. His books include Welcome to Florida, True Tales from America's Most Interesting State, and The State You're In, Florida Men, Florida Women, and Other Wildlife. He's also a columnist for the Florida Phoenix. Craig, thanks for being with us. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And if you have a favorite Florida man or Florida woman story, what do you think these headlines reveal about our state? Call in and let's talk about it. 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also email us, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Craig, you spent more than 3 decades as a journalist for the Tampa Bay Times. Is that kind of when you started collecting these wild Florida man tales?
No, Lord, no. It started in childhood. My parents would read the paper to each other and routinely would see some story and they go, "Hey, wait till I tell you about this one." And it was always a story from Florida. You know, one that sticks out in my mind is the state legislator who was running for sheriff, who's a former gospel singer, and it turned out he was financing his campaign by smuggling marijuana.
Oh, wow.
So, he's a law and order candidate, but, law and order for somebody else, not for him.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, is that sort of where you got the journalism bug? Is that when you first decided, I want to be writing these stories?
Well, wouldn't you? I mean, holy cow. Florida is the story that it's the gift that keeps on giving. I will never run out of Florida stories, quite frankly.
Why do you think Florida does seem to keep spawning so many of these wacky stories?
There are a number of factors. One is in 1940, we were the least populated southern state, and now we're the third most populous state. And so we've had this wrenching demographic change, and the population isn't evenly spread out over the whole peninsula. We're kind of crammed in that 30-mile wide swath along the coast and along I-4 where the theme parks are. So you put that many people in that small a space and cram them in that short a length of time, and they're naturally going to they're going to start, chasing each other with machetes and arguing over whose dog pooped on whose lawn.
How and when do you think then Florida Man became kind of this character rather than just a collection of headlines?
I think the process kind of started, I trace it back to Frederick Remington, who visited in 1895. And
that far back, huh?
He wrote about encountering low-browed cowfolk who would kill each other over cattle that he said weren't even fit for a pointer dog to mess on, which sort of started the stereotype rolling. I think it really became widespread, though, after the 2000 election, when
Yeah.
people sort of went from thinking, Florida was vacation land to thinking Florida was the land of confusion and the land of craziness.
It's
We
all,
became
yeah.
the punchline state.
But it's always been this land of opportunity too, right? I mean, it's been a place
Yes.
that's attracted people trying to get rich, people with kind of real estate ideas, people with kind of big schemes. There's been, cults that have come and gone here. So a lot of people come to Florida and sort of try and make their fortune here.
Sure, and try and fake their deaths too, which it happens a lot. But yeah, I call Florida the land of 1,000 chances because people who've screwed up elsewhere come here and try and start over. Probably the best example of that was Carlo Ponzi, the guy who actually invented the Ponzi scheme up in Boston, and while he was out on bail, came to Florida and got involved in a land fraud. So,
Wow.
people just repeat the same mistakes over and over again, but they all come to Florida to do it.
Some people might find the Florida man stereotype a little bit offensive or demeaning, but you've kind of leaned into it. So, but I'm wondering though, are there times when you've felt like you've had to defend your state to people or kind of explain that there's a lot more going on here than just the wacky headlines?
Sure, absolutely. And let me first respond to the demeaning part is, quite frankly, a big factor in why we produce all these stories is the fact that Florida is routinely ranked 49th among the states in funding for mental health treatment, to which I can only say thank God for Texas. Um, but as for defending the state, yeah, I routinely do that as well. I always point out to people that our state park system has won 4 national awards, which is 3 more than any other state has won. Our beaches are routinely ranked among the most beautiful in the country. And of course, our cop log items are the funniest in the world, as far as I'm concerned.
If you're just joining us, my guest is author Craig Pittman. We're talking about the Florida Man and Florida Woman headlines which inspire him to write. And if you have a favorite Florida Man or Florida Woman story, maybe you know a Florida man, maybe you are one of these characters yourself, call in and tell us about it, 813-755-6562. You can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. So, I mean, you mentioned the state park system. I wonder, what do you think people might miss by just focusing on the Florida Man headlines?
Well, I actually wrote a book about that called "Oh Florida: How America's Weirdest State Influences the Rest of the Country." People do tend to focus on the wackiness, and as a result, they miss all the ways in which Florida has changed the world. It was a Florida man, John Adanasoff, who invented the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And if not for him, we'd still have to be playing solitaire using cards rather than using our computers. But he grew up in Mulberry. His dad was a phosphate mining engineer who always carried a slide rule, and young John became fascinated with the slide rule, and it led to him ultimately inventing this wonderful thing on which we're talking right now. There are lots of other examples like that of people and things in Florida that wound up in influencing things that happened elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, I think air conditioning was invented here too. Like there wouldn't be a state like we have now without that nifty invention.
Exactly. It was invented by Dr. John Gorey, who was such a visionary that, of course, he died, broken and and reviled by his neighbors.
Mm. So what about things like, books from the likes of Carl Hiaasen or Tim Dorsey and TV shows that feature Florida Man? What do they say about our state's impact on popular culture?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Well, Tim Dorsey told me once, he said, people always accuse me of going too far, but generally the stories they're objecting to are stories he took from real life, things that had actually happened. And they thought, oh, you've made up something that's too outlandish. Well, it actually happened. It's actually out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I always like to point out that Carl says that he doesn't make up anything. He just changes the names. But what does it say about our state that we produce all this stuff? I argue that the conditions that produce all the Florida weirdness also produce our creativity. It's also the source of our invention, and that we should embrace that. We should let our freak flag fly high.
Mm-hmm. If you're just joining us, my guest is author Craig Pittman. We're talking about the Florida Man and Florida Woman headlines. And if you've got a favorite Florida Man story, let us know, 813-755-6562. Craig, I mean, you mentioned before your book, Oh, Florida, How America's Weirdest State Influences the Rest of the Country. That was published in 2016. I mean, if
Correct.
anything, since then, in the last 9 years, Florida has gotten an even bigger foothold on the politics and culture of the country. Where do you see Florida having the biggest influence on the rest of the United States?
I think now, obviously, it's the politics. You know, things that happened in Florida are now being used around the country, not necessarily for good or for ill, but but they're being used, and so that's in a way we've gone from being a purple state, you know, where the red and the blue were evenly balanced, and every election was a nail biter, to now we're a bellwether, and that's where we go from here. I honestly don't know.
I'm sure there's another book in it, though, right?
I would hope so.
The sequel. And let me come back to the environmental piece, because
Sure.
a lot of what you covered, I think, at the Tampa Bay Times, and a lot of your books, when you're not writing about the kind of people in Florida, you're writing about the wildlife, right? So,
It's all wildlife, one way or the other.
yeah. But when you think about the kind of collision of humans and nature in Florida, do you think the growing population here can coexist with creatures like the Florida panther, the manatee, and the other wildlife we have? Or is this kind of like we're on a collision course where something's got to give, and it's probably going to be the natural world?
We're trying to coexist. If you notice, and there's a piece about this in my new book, Welcome to Florida, where I write about how every time the environment is on the ballot in Florida, it wins by a large margin, because people really want to see more land saved from development. They want to see a lot more of the natural Florida. They want to see it kept natural rather than being covered with pavement. And that issue draws more attention and more support than any politician who runs for office. Why more politicians don't embrace that, I don't know. I don't understand it. But the people know and realize that our environment is our economy, that if you screw up the environment, you're going to screw up our economy. And so they support that. And you would think it would be a lot more politically popular with the politicians. I mean, look at what happened last year when the governor tried to build 3 golf courses in a state park.
And some pickleball courses too, we should say.
And yes, and people from both parties came out of the woodwork to protest, not just at the state park, but in Tallahassee, outside the DEP offices there.
I should point out too that the governor kind of tried to put that at arm's length from himself. But yeah, take your point.
Yeah, he tried. But there's a story in the Times today basically saying the idea definitely originated in the governor's office. So that should tell you how popular the environment is. Even the governor doesn't want to claim, oh no, I had nothing. I don't know where that golf course thing came from. That wasn't me.
Where do you go, Craig, when you want to get away from the city, or you want to kind of escape from Florida man?
Probably the closest natural area to me is Boyd Hill Nature Preserve, and actually I'll be speaking there tomorrow night talking about my book. But it's a wonderful place to hike, to see gopher tortoises, and just generally chill and kind of get away from the news. Larger places to go would include Myakka River State Park in Sarasota, Highlands Hammock State Park, which is a little further out, more towards the center of the state, and there are wonderful places to hike. And I love going on rivers to canoe. I've been on the Little Manatee River. That's a good canoeing river too.
Yeah, I mean, so it sounds like from what you're saying, there are still some places where you can escape, even though we have this kind of booming population. So some environmental success stories despite the pressure on the environment here.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the defeat of the golf course measure was huge, and the legislature not only backed the people saying don't build golf courses in our state park. They actually passed legislation saying governors should never be allowed to do this again. So it's sad that they had to do that, but it's good that they did it.
What are you working on next, Craig? I mean, you've got a lot of books under your belt already, and as you said, the state keeps giving. So what's inspiring you?
I'm actually writing a novel right now. Trying to trying to fill the hole for the wacky Florida crime genre now that Tim Dorsey has passed on. And it's called Death of a Dolphin, and I'm hopeful you'll see it popping up in bookstores soon.
Craig Pittman, author and journalist. His books include Welcome to Florida, True Tales from America's Most Interesting State, and the State You're in, Florida Men, Florida Women, and Other Wildlife. Thank you so much for your insights. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me today.
Well, coming up next, we head to Siesta Key, where artists from all around the world are hitting the beach to create art from sand. Stay with us for that conversation on Florida Matters, live and local.
When the weather gets dangerous, Florida Public Radio Emergency Network meteorologists strive to keep you informed. You can stay up to date year-round on WUSF and on the mobile app Florida Storms. Supported by WUSF and Citizens Property Insurance. Online at citizensfla.com. The Tony Award-winning musical about the survival of the human spirit, Les Miserables, is at Straz Center in Tampa, December 10th through December 14th. Show details and tickets at strazcenter.org.
I'm Don Gagne. Electricity prices across the country are rising. Illinois is seeing one of the sharpest increases. State lawmakers have now passed energy reforms, including allowing new nuclear reactors to be built for the first time in decades. How's that going down? Next time on Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
On the Bay Blend podcast, we take you to places in the greater Tampa Bay region you might not know about, like when I saw a big tree house at Bonnet Springs Park in Lakeland.
Are you guys renting that out? Could I,
We do rent it out. If you want to have your birthday party there, you can absolutely.
Oh, no, I meant to live, because that's about as big as my apartment.
I'm Sky LeBron, and join me every weekday morning on the Bay Blend for your quick hit of the news, culture, and events. That's the Bay Blend, wherever you listen to your podcasts, or at WUSF.org.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Matthew Petty. Every year since 2010, artists from around the world have traveled to a beach about an hour south of Tampa to create sculptures from the white sand. Siesta Key is where Hurricane Milton made landfall in October last year, but the Siesta Key Crystal Classic went ahead anyway. So Siesta Key Crystal Classic returns this weekend. To tell us more, here's Natalie Gutwein with the Siesta Key Chamber of Commerce. Natalie, what exactly is this festival all about?
It is a master sand sculpting contest. So it's 4 days. It's on Siesta Key, and it started in 2010. There was a gentleman that recognized he is a master sand sculptor. He had been going all over the world doing these sand sculpting competitions. And he decided, Siesta Key has the best sand. It's white, it's beautiful, it's the quartz crystal. And he said, it's right here in my backyard. I need to start a sand sculpting competition. And that's kind of how it got started.
So is that like an official kind of title, a master sand sculptor? And if so, how do you get that title?
Well, my understanding is you have to win some of these competitions. And there are sand sculpting competitions all over the world. And actually, a lot of the sculptors that come to see the Crystal Classic are from all over the world.
Okay, so, these aren't your kind of classic bucket and spade sand castles, right? These take a while to create.
They do, right.
So what can people expect to see? Like, there's a whole range of things, right?
They are. So there's a master sand sculpting contest. There are 24 artists. It's about 275 tons of sand that will go into one of these. It's not just buckets and sand. It's a lot of work when you watch them get in there and do it. They actually use Elmer's glue over the top after they get it together. Apparently that's biodegradable. Yeah, okay. That kind of makes it, once they get it going and they get it put together the way they want it, they put a little bit over the top and that it stays. Huh. So the Crystal Classic, It's Friday through Monday, and the first few days you can see the artists working, and then they're judged on Sunday at 3 o'clock. If you want to see who wins, you can check that out at that time. But the sculptures are huge, and they vary every year. They do kind of a different thing. But there's also an amateur contest. There's a quicksand contest where that's audience participation with one of the master sand sculptors, and he or she has 10. The audience says, all right, do Star Wars. And so he has to come up with something, and he's got 10 minutes and 1 bucket of sand to make something really quickly. There's food, alcohol. There's also a vendor area. There's 75 vendors. You do not have to have a ticket to get into that part of the Crystal Classic.
Okay, but you have to have a ticket to see the other works up close?
Yes, that's correct.
Is part of the attraction watching these artists at work? Is that what people go to see mostly?
It's a little bit of everything. You know, I think part of what makes the Crystal Classic so popular is where it's at. It's Siesta Key. And it's just a beautiful place to be. We have great villages. We've got a lot to do. And we have a huge beach. So people can come out. You can watch the sand sculpting if you're interested in that. You can talk to the artists. It's totally fine. Walk around, see how they do what they do. You can talk to them about it. You can get into the amateur contest, not that year, but in following years.
Okay.
So there's a lot of attraction to it.
Have you taken part in any of these yourself?
No, I'm one of those moms that can't even get that with their kids. You know, the one little sand sculpture that you try to keep together, it always falls apart. So no, I just marvel at what they do.
Sounds like glue is the secret ingredient, though.
I guess so. Yeah. And patience. Maybe that's
glue and patience.
where I'm lacking. Yeah.
So I mean, this is at a time when. I mean, you can go to the beach year-round in Florida, right? But
right.
Is this sort of like your slow season? Or
It is, right.
Okay.
So, and that was the reason why it was started in November, is because it does slow down a little bit on Siesta Key. And so this was sort of a way to bring more people in the chamber, because the chamber does, we do put this on. And it's actually very expensive to put on. The chamber pays for the artists to come in. It pays for their hotels, their food, and then they also have, they win as well. So it's a way to bring in more people in November.
Mm-hmm. I was watching some videos of this while I was kind of preparing for this interview, and you've got like big kind of earth moving equipment sort of shoveling the sand around.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, how complicated is it to get it all set up? Or is it just a matter of you got to have some diggers and just
Oh, no, it's weeks in advance.
Mm-hmm.
It is a huge undertaking. We work with the county. The people that put it on are there 2 weeks, I believe, before the thing actually starts, moving the sand around. And then after it's done, we make sure that, we're very conscious of the environment on Siesta Key. That means a lot to us. Mm-hmm. So we make sure that it is exactly the way it started when it's all over.
Right. Okay. And the glue, as you said, kind of
it's biodegradable. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there when people are making these sculptures, are there some rules? Like you can use certain things but not others. Like obviously the Elmer's glue is okay, but if you're getting in there with the super glue, that would be a no.
That's probably a no. I have not looked over the exact rules for that. But you have to just it's a creative. So it's whatever art you want to do. I don't know exactly how the rules work, though, with all that.
Mm-hmm. Where do the sculptors come from?
All over the world. There are some that are here locally. There are some within Florida, but they come from everywhere, and they have to be invited. There are only 24 artists that are allowed to compete.
Okay, so from what I've seen, there's like a big kind of entryway sculpture which has people the names of the sponsors are carved into that.
Right.
And then you've got a bunch of little mounds, like 26, do you see it? Or
24.
24. Okay, so there's 24 other sort of mounds of sand over the course
of
the weekend.
And then the amateur competition as well. So there's quite a bit. There's a lot of sand sculptors to see. There's also a kids' play area, so the kids can come. They can make their own little sculptures, and there are some presentations to the kids to help with some other master sand sculptors to show them what to do and give them some advice.
Mm-hmm. Is this one of the premier sort of sand sculpting competitions in the world?
Well,
now?
I think anything that goes on Siesta Key is the premieres.
Sure. Is it the highlight for Siesta Key, or is there other events you've got going on through the year?
Oh, we have events all year long, but this is a big one. This has a huge economic impact to all of Sarasota County. It brings a lot of people to Siesta Key. All of our bars and restaurants will be busy. I will not get in my car all weekend long. I don't ride my bike around because, yeah, there's a lot of traffic out there on Crystal Classic weekend.
Yeah, you can ride your bike on the beach. It's nice and smooth sand.
It is,
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so the economic impact, like I know sometimes these figures can be a little fuzzy, but what does it bring to the county and to Siesta Key?
The last number I heard was a $9 million economic impact. And that was a couple years ago, so that could have gone up by now.
Okay.
But, as you said, we were hit by 2 hurricanes. We got hit pretty hard. And we were able to put the Crystal Classic on last year, and that was sort of our, okay, we're back, we can breathe again. And we were very, very proud that we were able to put this on in November of last year, even after those hurricanes came through. And now we're back in business.
Yeah, what does Siesta Key look like? I mean, is there still some, because like a lot of communities are still kind of rebuilding, and it takes a long time to get up and running after a storm of that magnitude. So what's the damage still in Siesta Key?
Well, surprisingly, we are put back together quite well. I live out on the Key. There was water that went across my property, and my house is elevated. So fortunately, I wasn't one of the people that was on ground level. But I could not believe how much of my life was altered by that water going across. What really, really surprised me was how resilient the business owners and the property owners, everybody got back on board and got the place back together again. We're making improvements. Siesta Key is evolving. The Siesta Key Chamber, we've got a new CEO now, Sarah Furstenberger, and I'm very excited with the ideas she has. We are elevating. Siesta Key is kind of going to be going into the next level of what resort communities are going to be.
Right, and you are kind of at the mercy a little bit of the elements, right? I mean, on
the
one hand, you've got the beautiful beach, so thanks Mother Nature for that. But on the other hand, if you get nailed by a hurricane, that's pretty hard to come back from.
It is. It was a lot of work. There was a lot of our restaurants had to, they were up, the people that own those restaurants were up the next morning shoveling with brooms in the owners. That's kind of the beauty of Siesta Key. There are pretty much everything out there is privately owned. We don't have a lot of corporations out there. It's private owners. And they were there the next day putting it back together, and it was really, really fast after the hurricanes that we were good again.
Is it a pretty tight-knit community?
Very. It is. I love living out there.
What are you looking forward to most about this festival?
I love the camaraderie. I love getting out there. So there's the Beach Club, which is one of our local clubs on the island. It's been around since 1948, I think. They put on the bar, and they've got the bar and the live entertainment. So it's a great place to go and gather and talk to people, run into everybody you know. Siesta Key is sort of a small town.
Yeah. And opening up to the world this weekend, what should people know if they want to go to the festival?
They should know that you can go, you see the sand sculptors. If somebody is just, local, I just want to go see the vendors, they can do that as well. Of course, always plan, parking, but just give it a chance. Because people come, they look at it, and then they leave. So if you can use public transportation to get out there, great. The trolley.
Or your bike, right?
Or your bike, right? That's correct. There will be parking at other places other than just the main beach. But it is quite the experience. Bring the kids, bring the family, come out, eat at the Crystal Classic or go to one of our restaurants. It's a great place to hang out.
Yeah, and then get inspired for some of your own sand creations next time. I imagine.
Yeah.
Natalie Gutwein with Siesta Key Chamber of Commerce, thank you so much for joining us and sharing some information about the Siesta Key Crystal Classic, the annual sand sculpting competition. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us on.
Well, tomorrow on Florida Matters Live and Local, are you a family caregiver? Nearly 1 in 4 adults in Florida are caring for a family member or a friend with complex medical issues or disabilities, and that can cause some financial and emotional strain for caregivers. We'll talk about some of the challenges and the help that is out there for caregivers. If you've got a story to tell or a question about caregiving, give us a call. Let us know, 813-755-6562. You can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org, and join the conversation Thursday at 12 noon. Our executive producer is Grayson Doctor. Our producers are Amelie Horace. Lily Belcher is our intern. Our engineers are Jackson Harp and Gio Garvin. And Jackson composes the music. Natalie Jaron handled the video today. Subscribe to Florida Matters wherever you get your podcasts. Also watch on WSF's YouTube channel. I'm Matthew Petty. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Support for WUSF comes from listeners like you and